Men accused of being members of murderous ISIS sell the Beatles smirk as they defend Jihadi John. Two men accused of being the last living members of the British ISIS terror cell dubbed the Beatles smirk today as they were asked about Jihadi John and his executions. El Shafi Elshk, 29, and Alexander Cody, 34, were captured in January and are fighting claims they were stripped of British citizenship in the hope they can avoid trial and the death penalty in America. Speaking to the BBC last night, the extremists denied being part of ISIS' British-run execution squad who beheaded or crucified at least 27 hostages and tortured many more. London-born Cody, a former drug dealer who left his wife and 2 children in the UK, smirked when asked about Mohammed m.urderous, better known as Jihadi John. He said, "He was nicknamed that. But he's a friend of mine." When confronted with the people he murdered including David Haynes and Alan Henning, Cody said, "That's their way to choose to remember him. I chose to remember him differently." When asked if he condemned him, Cody said, "I took a position of not speaking of him at all in a negative way." El Shafi Elshk stayed silent through much of the interview with Quentin Somerville, refusing to say what he did for ISIS for legal reasons. But he did say it was not confirmed they have lost their citizenship, adding, "What makes the British government want a British citizen to be tried in America?" Along with Mohammed m.urderous, the killer nicknamed Jihadi John, and Ian Davis, Mr. Cody and Mr. Elshk are thought to have been part of a group named after the 60s band because of their English accents. M.urderous, who was killed in a U.S. airstrike in 2015, appeared in a number of videos in which captives, including British aid workers David Haynes and Alan Henning and U.S. journalists James Foley and Stephen Sotloff, were killed. Davis was convicted of being a member of a terrorist organization and jailed for 7.5 years at a court in Silivri, Turkey, in May 2017. M.urderous was eviscerated in a drone strike in 2015. Last month, the Home Office said it had agreed to a short-term pause of the Mutual Legal Assistance (MLA) process with the U.S. over Mr. Cody and Mr. Elshk after a request from lawyers acting for one of the men. It came after the Home Secretary Sajid Javid said he wanted the 2 ISIS jihadists to stand trial on terror and murder charges in America, making it more likely the pair would be convicted in a court of law and potentially given the death penalty. But the potential difficulties of successfully prosecuting Alexander Cody and El Shafi Elshk meant the UK was reluctant to repatriate them. The extremists had their UK citizenship taken away by the Home Office before they were captured to stop them re-entering the country. In his letter to U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, Mr. Javid said, "In this instance we believe that a successful federal prosecution in the U.S. is more likely to be possible because of the differences in your statute book and the restrictions on challenges to the route by which defendants appear in the U.S. courts. The U.S. currently has additional charges for terrorism which are not available under UK criminal law, and those offenses carry long sentences. Ministers are keenly aware that there will be public outrage if a murderous jihadist was released due to lack of evidence. Prosecutor must be satisfied that there is sufficient evidence for a realistic prospect of conviction, tricky when the crimes have taken place in a foreign war zone. Evidence or confessions gathered by the groups holding the IS fighters, the Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, and the Free Syrian Army, FSA, could prove inadmissible as they have no recognized legal systems. Unless there are statements from reliable eyewitnesses, it is likely these could be excluded as hearsay. The captors wore masks in front of their hostages, some of whom are alive, meaning they could not be identified by sight. If they had been tortured and mistreated by local forces, the case would be dropped and they would be set free on the streets of Britain. One diplomat told the Daily Telegraph, "Getting enough evidence to be confident of a conviction at home is difficult, so our preference is to leave them there. But the problem is the SDF does not have a recognized legal system. Basically it is a bit of hot potato that we want to make sure we're not left holding." Around 850 Britons are estimated to have left the country to join ISIS, with around half returning. The Home Office disclosed last year that of the 400 or so foreign fighters who had come back from Syria and Iraq, only 54 have been convicted. Some, Those who could only be charged with membership of a terrorist group, were given relatively short sentences and have already been released.